So I just picked up some new inventory, looking for some stuff to sell. At the moment I was kind of at a side-by-side, so I found a few things, and in this video I kind of thought maybe we'd kind of walk through what I usually do on, some of this stuff that I get in that isn't full rebuilds or massive projects, but just some of the little things that it takes to get these things ready to sell. So all of these run and drive, but they do need a few little things overall. So first we got this is a 22 850 Can-Am Outlander. We've got a 2016 Kawasaki Mule Pro FXT. These are kind of cool. Bench seat. That bench converts into a bigger rear box. Got a 2017 900 Polaris Ranger and a 2016 Honda Pioneer 4 700. So yeah, we'll get these things unloaded and kind of walk through them a little bit, see what we need to fix, and then tackle those problems and get them ready to sell. So follow along. So I've got these things unloaded here. I'm going to do a little walk around and kind of show what I found as far as some of the issues that we're going to address. So first of all, this Honda Pioneer, I went to go pick it up, and this all came from another dealer I work with, and he told me this one had 3,000 miles on it. I was like, oh, that sounds great. Went and turned the key, and we've got zero speedometer. Absolutely dead, nothing. He's like, oh yeah, the speedometer doesn't work on it. I'm like, okay. Also noticed, we don't have any headlights or taillights on this thing. So we've got some sort of electrical problem. He told me the speedometer was probably just dead and burnt up, which, judging by the fact that we have no taillights or brake lights on it, headlights or anything else, there's some sort of electrical thing. Whether it's something with a relay or fuse or something, we'll tear into that and figure out what's going on there. It seems to run and drive fine. Other thing that I found on this guy is down on the back side, we've got a real bad torn CV boot down there that's completely open, so we're going to replace that as well. So it should be basically some electrical work on this one, that CV shaft, and we'll check it over and basically do a full detail and stuff. This 900 Ranger, we do have a cracked windshield, but these glass windshields are super expensive, so I'm not going to replace this, especially since this is on the passenger side. Driver's side is totally clear. We do have some tears in the seat on the passenger side and the driver's side, so these I'll recover. That's not a big deal to do. I got that vinyl and stuff on hand. Those are a pretty quick job. Another thing I noticed, this one seemed to run and drive just fine. I did notice that this side down here, this CV shaft, is not staying in there. You can push it in and then it pulls right back out, which usually on these what happens is that spline and that little retaining clip gets kind of rusted down, and then it just doesn't seal or stick in there anymore. So I've put a new CV shaft in that one as well. So I'd recover these seats, check a few little things out, clean and detail. The Mule, I don't think actually needs anything other than cleaned up and detailed. There's some little stuff like surface rust on the A-arms and bumper and things like that. So usually I'll kind of touch that stuff up and clean it up. This one definitely seemed to run and drive fine. Everything worked on it. This seat there, a little torn up spot on it. I might try, I don't think this one's worth fully recovering, but I might try to get that little flap to kind of stick down a little bit better on it. Overall, this one has a few little bumps and bruises, a few little things that are kind of cut and broke, but not a big deal. These are kind of interesting. This is a FXT Mule, or Trans as they would call it. So what these things do is this rear passenger seat folds down into there, and then this bed basically slides forward, this whole part here, and then flips out, and basically your box goes from that size all the way to that size. So you can either have a crew model or something with a giant dump box on it. This Outlander, so this was that 22 850, seemed to run and drive just fine. I did notice though, when we put it in four-wheel drive, that we were getting some slipping kind of ratchety noise, which is usually this little prop shaft going from the transmission up to the front diff. Basically, this has got some splines on it that matches into another spline collar. And usually what happens is they get a little rusty and worn down, and then basically they'll kind of slip under a load, especially with an 850 like this where you got a lot of power. It's not too uncommon. So probably put a new one of those in there too, clean in detail, and check fluids and air filters and that kind of stuff. So I think what we're going to start first is probably just detailing these things up. We'll get them nice and clean, and then we'll start fixing a few of these little things. Focusing on this Honda Pioneer here, so we're going to start with this one, trying to figure out what our electrical issue is. Our fuse box, this first fuse I've got pulled out is our ignition fuse. So that gets power basically from the battery through the key switch, and then turns on the main relay and stuff, which also eventually feeds power to the speedometer. So we're going to check and see if we got power. And yep, so we've got power going to that fuse, so that's not our problem. We're going to check this light fuse as well and just see if that one's getting power. Maybe we've got two different issues going on with the headlights and the speedometer here. Okay, well, we got power going through that one too. Okay, so I think the next thing would be is to check our relays. I believe this one's our light relay, that one's our main relay there. So we'll check see if we got power going to those as well, and see if maybe we got a bad relay, hopefully, or something dumb like that. Pull the little relay box out here. So the way this works, so green is a ground, and then this white black, that's our control voltage from our switch to basically activate this relay. This brown is power in, and then basically the other brown is power out to the light system. So if we're checking voltage here, got the key on, so I've got voltage on that brown going in, nothing to the other one yet, which is correct. So basically when this relay actuates, it sends power across this brown to the other one. It gets activated by this white, so I'm going to switch on, so I should have 12 volts here. I do not. I'm also going to check my ground quick. Go to resistance. And I don't have the best ground there. Let's see here. Yep, so we've got a good ground there, so we got continuity across our ground, but we're not getting power to this white-black one. So it could be a switch issue. We'll see. What I can do too is bypass this relay by basically jumping across these two browns, and then I should have headlights. So let's check that next. Okay, just made a little jumper and I've got headlights. So we've got either a switch issue or something. Let's see if I got tail lights as well. Yep, we've got tail lights too. Okay, so all that light stuff works. We've got some sort of, maybe this switch is just unplugged. So our light switch is back here. So I think I might be pulling this dash apart to see what's going on here, because in theory I need to get back behind here to check power going up to this speedometer as well. So I've got the speedometer kind of pulled out here. There's just a little bracket with some Phillips screws, and there's a little pigtail harness going from there to there. So we're gonna start checking some voltage, and then this little connector here is actually our headlight switch too, with that white-black wire. So I think I'm gonna check a couple connections there and see what's going on, and maybe we can find some more problems. Pulled the wire for that light switch and plugged a couple jumper wires in there, and I'm checking continuity, and I got no continuity. So we have got a bad switch, I think, or something maybe broken up underneath there, but the switch is not working. I checked power going into the switch, and we've got power there. So our problem with the lights seems to be this switch. So now I'm going to pull this speedometer cluster thing apart and see if I can trace power to that and see if it's a dead speedometer too. This is the back side of that speedometer and the pigtail. There was some corrosion down here, and that is on one of our main power wires. So on this thing we're going to check, basically there's a constant power source and then a keyed power source and a ground. And if all of those things have power and ground when they're supposed to, then we've got a dead speedometer. On the connector here for the speedometer, there was a lot of corrosion up in here. When I was measuring voltage on it, on basically this red and the red-white, I was getting voltage, but it was just really like intermittent. I had to have my little pick wire there just kind of perfectly placed. So what I did is took a little cup of vinegar, which this was clear when I started, let it sit in here soaked for maybe about 2 hours or so, and look at the dirtiness that came out of there. Now it seems like our little connectors are pretty clean in there. So we're going to double check this and plug our speedometer back in, and maybe we'll get lucky. Okay, I've got good voltage at the connection now. So let's plug this back in, turn our key on, see if we get a speedometer at all. And that's a no. Shoot. So I've got voltage to both pins that need to be. We got a grid ground. I think we do have a dead speedometer, unfortunately. But I have to order one of those. And probably a light switch. Well, I broke down and ordered a speedometer for this thing. So I'll have to cut back to that once I get that in. I did just pull out the light switch real quick. There ended up being a little broken wire down inside there. I just soldered it back together. So now, we've got some lights that work at least. So, just waiting on a speedometer for this thing, and then also need to replace that front CV or rear CV shaft on it. So, I think we'll focus on something else here for a minute and get these other ones all ready to go. Just pulled the CV shaft out of this Pioneer, and this thing wasn't driving at all. There was no balls left in it or anything. Kind of came out in pieces. So now it's time to put in a new one. Cutting ahead. We got a brand new speedometer here for the Pioneer. Plugged it in. Moment of truth. Let's see what we got. Good sign. It works. That's crazy. The old speedometer is actually dead. And now this one has 0 miles on it. Kind of unfortunate. Got this mule all ready to go. Ended up just doing a detail on this one. It really just didn't need anything. The oil looked perfect on it already. I think it was just serviced before I got it. Air filter looked brand new too. So basically just did clean and detail on everything. Did kind of touch up a few things like this front bumper. There were just a few little rust spots and some stuff like that. But yep, this one's ready to sell. So this will be one of the easier project sort of things that I get in. Pretty typical thing where it's, you know, a little bit of cleaning, a little bit of things like that, and then get them ready to sell. Found one more surprise on this 900 Ranger. So it's been sitting here kind of overnight. We got a little drip underneath the engine. Just went and felt, or just tried to tighten up the drain plug, and well, it's kind of a righty-loosey situation. So we got a stripped drain plug on this too. We'll have to pull it off and see what it is. I have to put a helicoil on that thing. So I've got the Can-Am up on the lift here. We're going to pull this wheel off and address this noise. So this is what we're looking to replace. This is just a used part. This is actually what I picked up at Power Sports Nation. But I think this is what's going on with this, is this couples in from the transmission up to the front diff. And these splines on here like to get a little rusted down, and then they'll kind of slip and give you kind of a ratchety noise under a load. So we're going to pull this tire off and try to get to that part back there and pull it out and see if that's our issue. So here's what we're after. Here's our part. This is that little coupler. Said spline part coming out of the transmission, going to the front diff. And just by first looks, feels pretty loose in there. So I think this is probably our issue. So we're gonna get this thing inked out. We'll cut these little clamps off, and this is kind of spring loaded. I think it should push far enough that I can wedge it out. Otherwise, what'll happen is we'll probably have to loosen the front diff mounts and then kind of wiggle that as well to get this thing popped out. But we'll see here. So this shaft is slid out. So there's kind of a spring in here that kind of holds this in place, as well as these little rubber boots. So I've got it out, but the problem is it won't quite lean far enough to actually pop out of the way. So we're gonna have to loosen up this diff. So I pulled this bottom bolt there, and we got another one up there and one down there. I'm hoping maybe this can just kind of rock that way just enough to kind of slip this little shaft out. So we'll see if that'll work. Alrighty, we got the old one out. Luckily we're able to rock this front diff up enough and then slipped out on that side. So here's the old one. So those splines look kind of rough, and then especially down inside here you can see where that was sitting. You get kind of a pretty good where that's sitting down inside there. You can see a pretty good little groove where it's kind of worn down those splines, and then you get kind of a ratchety sound from these things and slipping. So put this new one in there and we should be good to go again. So we've got that part put back in the Outlander. So really the only thing left to do is I just want to touch up some of these little bumpers. Got some surface rust and stuff. Something I like to use that works really well is some little truck bed liner. So this stuff will have a little texture to it, so like rust spots and things, covers up really nice, super durable. So we'll hit these little bumpers and get this thing detailed, and this one should be ready to go too. Then we'll move on to that Ranger. So this is after coating these tubes with that truck bed liner after it's dried. You can see it covers up these rust spots really well. It's got some nice texture to it, so hides pretty much everything, plus it's super strong. Kind of looks like the original powder coat. I love it for touching up racks and bumpers and stuff like that. We'll do a final detail on this Can-Am, and this one's good to go too. When it comes to detail on machines, I get questions all the time what I use. At the moment, this is kind of what I've been on a kick on. This stuff seems to work great on kind of plastics, blacks, and everything. So I did the right side here. There's kind of the left side where you see where it's faded. Stuff's pretty easy and cheap. Sprays on, rub it in. But there's all sorts of sprays out there that seem to work good, and they never all last perfectly, but I seem to like this one at the moment, and it's going to do a good job on this Can-Am. Well, just like that, another one's detailed and ready to go. Just need to finish up that Ranger, and then should be done with all these things. Get them ready to sell. This one turned out good. Boy, I like this blue color. Probably because it kind of matches my logo and stuff. Pretty partial to the blues. Alright, I'm under the Ranger 900 here. There's our drain plug, and see that's where it drip's coming from. So this thing, so you give it a little tighten and it starts loosening. So somebody definitely stripped the threads out. So we're gonna put in a little helicoil kit. So this, you tap out the hole to a slightly bigger thread in one of the coils, and then basically replace it with the old threads. So we're gonna pull that plug out, drain the oil, get this thing taken care of. Just pulled this front CV shaft out of the Ranger, and so this is what's going on. This is pretty common that I see all the time, is the little clip that holds this in place will just kind of rust away, and there's just nothing left of it, and it doesn't hold it in. And these splines are pretty worn down too. A new clip probably would have held this CV shaft in, but we just put a brand new shaft in altogether. Looks like I've got this drain plug fixed as well. I actually got it lucky. I didn't do a helicoil. What I ended up doing was getting a different drain bolt that was just a hair longer, so that it would thread in and catch the last couple threads. It seemed to grab real nice. This is the old drain plug where it would thread decent until it got to this tapered part where it kind of lost threads and then it was spinning. So a little bit longer drain bolt solved my issue without doing a helicoil. The final step on this Ranger is recovering these seats. So I pulled off passenger side and the driver's side there. These are super simple to take off. Basically, nothing really holds them on. To recover these, just slip a screwdriver underneath here, pull all these old staples off, take the old cover off, get some nice stretchy vinyl, stretch it over and staple back on there. And that's pretty much it. Something like this with this little foam. I'm guessing a dog chewed at this or something funny, but I'll probably lay a little bit back in here just to kind of pad that back up so it looks a little more even. The driver's side though, shouldn't need to do anything to the foam on this one. Well, just like that, we've got some new seats on this thing. Look brand new. Just a few bucks and material goes a long ways on this. So, this Ranger's done, other than a little final detail. And then we're almost done with these 4 machines. Alright, we've got all 4 of these machines ready to go. All detailed up and clean, got all our little things fixed on. We're ready to sell these things. So I've got these things posted, and a couple people interested in a few of them already, so they should be going pretty quick. They all seem to clean up pretty nice. Love the blue on this Outlander. That Mule. And then we got our 4-seater Pioneer and the Ranger. All right, follow along for the next thing.